Good evening and welcome to the Glendale City Council meeting of January the 18th, 2022, being called to order at 6:04. To help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community, City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged, though, to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse, Channel 99. They are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called Streamweave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. And with that, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
And Mayor Devine.
Here. The next item,
Next would be flag salute.
and I have asked Armenian to lead the flag salute again this evening, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic of which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for tonight's invocation. As we just passed Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we remember not only for what he did, but for what he dreamed. He once said, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle." We have a unique responsibility to honor those courageous individuals who sacrificed, suffered, and struggled to enable our progress today. We honor and celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King and the many others who gave their lives by building on the foundation that they created. May our council bring their experiences and expertise to the table and work out solutions together. Help them to listen well, to empathize, and brainstorm the best path for our city. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you. And the next item, please, your report.
The agenda for the January 18th, 2022 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council is posted on January 12th, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. For those of you that are tuning in, I just want to report that item 8E, and that would be the state of the community forest, will be rescheduled for February the 1st. Thank you. Next item.
3 would be presentation and appointments. 3.8, agenda preview for the meeting of Tuesday, January 25th, 2022 by John Tucktalian.
Good evening, Mayor, Divine, members of City Council. Next Tuesday, we'll start the day off with a joint meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority with one item on their agenda. That'll be a report from Parks regarding the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan amendments, reprogramming return CDBG CARES Act funding for senior nutrition and services programs. Moving on to the evening, we have a number of consent items. At 4A is going to be a report from Public Works regarding traffic signal modifications on Honolulu Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue, followed by another report from Public Works regarding Glendale Beeline Battery Electric Bus Grant Agreement. That'll be followed by a report from Glendale Water and Power regarding the award of a design-build contract for the pipeline management program. And there will be 2 final reports from Community Services and Parks, and both of them are updating the authorized signatory for the California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program grant with California Department of Housing and Community Development. And the one main item under action items that evening is going to be a report from Community Development regarding the adoption of the 2021 to 2029 Glendale housing element.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next item.
Next item is 3B, appointment of boards and commission member, introduced by Councilmember Brotman. Danielle Lakareff, Design Review Board.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yes, hi, Madam Mayor, thank you. So I put Danielle Lockereff's name in up last meeting and mentioned that she studied architecture at Cal Poly Pomona and graduated in 2000. And since then has been working for a number of different firms, but most recently for the last 9 years working at a company called Office 42 Architecture, and worked on a wide range of projects that hopefully maybe she'll say a word or two about in a moment. But I really liked her diverse set of experiences. And when I spoke to her on the phone, I thought she had a very compelling kind of modern approach to design, which I really liked. So I will maybe, I'm not sure if we want Danielle to say a word or two first, or do we vote and then have her maybe say something?
Let's take a vote.
Okay.
Put the nomination into effect.
Okay. So I will move the nomination for Danielle Lockereff, please.
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. And now we can hear from Ms. Lakareff. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I'm thrilled to be appointed to the Design Review Board. I'm very grateful to Councilman Brotman for the nomination and this opportunity, and I'm also very thankful to you, the mayor, and the city council for the appointment and for putting your faith in me for what I feel is a really important role in the city. I hope to bring a unique perspective to the design review board. As Councilman Brotman mentioned, I've lived here for 20 years. So I really know all the nuances of the different neighborhoods. And I also, I work for an office called Office 42 Architecture, and we're a mission-driven firm. And so our office goal, and my goal throughout my architectural career has been to positively impact our community through design. And I'm just excited to do that here. I've worked on several project types, as you mentioned, from museums to nonprofit housing to residential projects. And some of the projects that are most dear to me are the ones where I had the opportunity to collaborate with the community. For example, I was really fortunate to work with the great people in the Skid Row Community Improvement Coalition, social model, and the LA Mayor's Office on the Refresh Spot, which is a parking lot that was turned into the city of Los Angeles's first pilot program hygiene station. And the Refresh Spot now serves up to 800 people a day, and it's really amazing. And we provided washers and dryers, showers, trailers, and beautification that we accomplished in a series of build days. And so we painted murals and worked with the community. So the most important thing to me is working with communities to create beautiful environments. So similarly, I'm excited to assist bringing the design goals of Glendale to fruition in my role here. I genuinely look forward to meeting and collaborating with my fellow board members, Glendale Planning Department staff, and the Glendale community. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Welcome on board. Your resume is stellar, and I hope that I'm sure you'll be a positive addition to our design review board.
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Danielle.
And next item.
Next item will be number 4, consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the council or audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before motion is proposed.
I would like to move consent items unless anybody wants to pull. Item 4A, B, C, D, and F.
I'll second.
Right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. What's next, please?
Next would be city council and staff comments.
Okay, council comments. Councilmember Brotman.
Madam Mayor, yes, I have 2 things. First, I was hoping that Chief Povolitis might mention something about the enforcement actions that have taken place. I think it's in the last week or 2. There was a exciting dragnet that picked up a few people that were involved in speed contests on Glen Oaks, I believe, and I thought that's something that we should highlight. And if the chief is there and wants to say something about it, I would appreciate that.
And there he is.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Brotman. Yes, I think what you're referring to is the press release that we posted last week with the list of arrests from our enforcement on reckless driving and in people who engaged in speed contests. That's something that we've been actively engaged with and posting actually for the last 2 years, everybody that's involved in that. But this one had a little bit of different twist because with it we were able to post a video that actually came from a helicopter, which actually highlighted the integrated approach that we used, that where the helicopter was able to identify people involved in the speed contests and then direct officers to at least one of those cars and make the arrests. So, just as you know, one of those things that we do is, as Glendale does, it's not only our traffic bureau, but it's our patrol officers and it's also our air support unit. We put all our tools to work to help address those issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next thing I had was just a small item involving an overpass across the 134 freeway that I spoke to Mr. Imrani about today. And Aram, are you able to put up that map? Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's interesting. I was riding my bike, which now I'm doing a lot more. So I'm finding these things around the city that I think could be improved. And I was coming from the north and tried to cross over the 134. My Apple Map or Google Map or whatever it was telling me that there was a bridge that I could ride across. But then I found that the bridge, and it's right on Galen. I don't know if Arm, you're able to put a cursor there, but it's right at Galen. If you can see that there, and it crosses the 134. Anyway, it's been closed apparently for many, many years. The issues come up, and I asked Mr. Imrani to look into whether we can reopen that, because what happens is that if you live down around Piedmont Park and you want to walk up to Wilson Middle School, for example, if you're a middle school student, you can't cross there. So you have to go all the way around on Glendale Avenue. You go north on Glendale Avenue, you have to cross the freeway, and actually there's an on-ramp for people that are going eastbound on 134. There's an on-ramp off of Glendale Avenue heading north, and it's a very dangerous crossing there. There's poor lighting, and cars are really in the mode of getting on that freeway, so they're just kind of coming around the bend there, and the crosswalk is not very clear. So I mean, that's something I think we could improve as well. But having to have people come around and cross there to go to the middle school, I think is, hopefully unnecessary if we can get that overpass open again. And I understand at one time there was some, at least one or maybe a couple neighbors complained because it is a little dark in there where that overpass is. And I guess there were maybe some kids hanging out there and causing trouble. So maybe, but if we could look at that again and see if there's a way we can figure out, maybe with some better lighting or something, to get that open safely so that people can pass through that corridor more easily.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Brotman. Mr. Galanian, this is an issue that I brought up, I think it was 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it was decided that, number one, it would have to be all lit up, which would be very expensive. It's also a danger. There would have to be some sort of security in the area. But I don't know if you want to look into this again, but I know that we've covered this several times in the past.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I didn't know. That was probably before my time, because I don't remember hearing about this. So
Right.
Yeah,
wasn't.
we've been there. We've been down this road.
Yes, Madam Mayor, you had brought this up previously, and we had looked into it. You are correct. Our police department has major safety concerns about that crossing. We will dig up what we had put together as a response, and we'll provide that to council as well.
Okay, you can provide that to Councilmember Brotman. Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Kasakian.
just want to remind those families and folks who are interested in attending the ribbon cutting and opening of the T-ball field in Brand Park. I think that's going to happen this Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm going to try to be there with my family, and hopefully folks can show up, of course, maintaining a safe distance, or hopefully being as safe as they can be to celebrate the opening of that. And as far as that bridge overpass, I can tell you, both Mayor and Councilmember Brotman, that the issue is in part tied to safety concerns and issues related to the school.
Yeah.
As you know, that I think that bridge over the freeway has been closed since I was at Wilson, and it was partially because it was just a place where a lot of issues would arise. So if there's ways to make that safer, I think the school district needs to be brought into that conversation. because it does go over the freeway, and most of the people using it will be students.
Exactly. You're exactly right, Councilmember Kasakian. And when this was brought up in the past, I spoke with residents who were students at the schools in that area before you were there. And they told me about how the kids would hang out there, and there were a lot of issues, safety issues. So you're absolutely right.
And I don't want to dwell on it to give any of the
Yeah.
kids who've forgotten about it since any ideas, but
Right.
I can tell you that most of the students will go down, I guess what would be considered Verdugo or Glendale, and those would be, as narrow as the sidewalks are, that's the preferred pass for students to take.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Okay, staff, City Manager Galani.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, in light of the recent surge in the COVID positive cases, more specifically Omicron variant, and the demand for testing sites, staff has been working with 3 entities that have set up sites for testing. First one is West Coast COVID testing, located in a parking lot across from Verdugo Park. They provide free rapid tests for GUSD students with student IDs, free PCR testing. They do require registration, and the days and times vary for the site. Next one is Carbon Health. The site is located at 128 South Glendale Avenue. They operate daily from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Appointments are required, and they have their information on their website on that link. The third one is Armenian Relief Society. They operate on Wednesdays in January from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. and then restart at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. They're located at 517 West Glen Oaks Boulevard. No appointments are required, and walk-ins are welcome. Lastly, as of today, the United States Post Office, they'll be mailing free at-home testing kits, 1 kit of 4 COVID-19 tests per residential address. And you can order at their website. All of this information has been posted on the city's website as well as our social media posts. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Good information to know. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. And what's next, please?
Community event announcement, 3-minute portion. I do have a caller on the line.
Okay, let's hear it.
Tony Passarella, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. Tony Passarella. You just won't leave it alone. I'm trying to warn you for a year now with this COVID vaccine thing. Dr. Wang last week, a lot of misinformation from that dude. So anytime, Armin, you guys portray yourselves, been watching you for a year, talking about the COVID vaccines. You portray yourself as scared little children, afraid you're going to die. Well, I have news for you. You're going to die. 1 out of 1 of us is going to die. I'm going to die. You're going to die. The important thing is where you're going to spend eternity. So think about that. Armin, anytime. Arm. I got a couple of slides here. So Dr. Wang had his slides, so I got a couple of slides here. Okay, there's number 1. Well, this is a good one. Reported deaths by vaccine type. So I'm not going to read them all because I'm going to run out of time really fast here. Meningitis. Let's go shingles, 302. Measles, 519 deaths. Human papillomavirus, 603 deaths. Rotavirus, 886. Polio, 1900. Pneumonia, 2571. That's at the bottom. You can't read. It's awful small. And COVID-19. You see that blue line, that long blue line at the very bottom? That's COVID-19. The other vaccines, 29 total vaccines, from 1990 is when the VAERS system went into place. CDC VAERS, the same source that Dr. Wang was quoting last week. 29 total vaccines, 18,866 deaths from 29 total vaccines. COVID, 21,382 deaths. So what the hell is going on here? Next slide, please. You people need to wake up. I've been warning you for a year. I'm going to repeat that. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, reported deaths from major drug and vaccine recalls. Swine flu at the very top. You can't see this small. I'll read it for you. 53 deaths after 1 year, and they recalled the swine flu vaccine. 53 deaths. At the very bottom, we got Bextra 1 year recalled, 1,054 deaths. COVID-19, the very long line at the very bottom, the big fat red line, 21,745 deaths according to VAERS, the system that's been in place since 1990. It's a safety and efficacy system that's been in place. What is going on? Why hasn't this been recalled? You keep promoting a vaccine that's killing people, and you just won't stop. You're going to be on the wrong side of history. I warned you over and over and over again. Vaccination.
Thank you, Mr.
What's the
Passarello.
definition?
Thank you.
Mr.
Mayor.
Passarello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that it? Is that the only call?
Mayor, I do have one more caller.
Oh, okay.
Malcolm Johnson, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Malcolm.
I definitely appreciate the Glendale City Council having to be polite and listening to Mr. Passarello's absolute lies and biased information, but I don't have to. I can be rude. Mr. Passarello is lying. He has no idea what he's talking about. Please get your shots. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, that
that
was the
it?
last caller.
Okay, all right. Thank you to the last caller. Next item.
Next item would be 8 action items. 8A, fire departments, standardization of specialized equipment in conjunction with MSA self-contained breathing apparatus manufactured by MSA Safety Incorporated. 1, resolution to adopt standardization policy and authorize the purchase of equipment and supplies manufactured by MSA Safety Incorporated.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor, Divine Member, City Council, I wanted to introduce Jeff Brooks, Battalion Chief, for his first inaugural presentation to City Council of all the days on his birthday, actually. Happy birthday, Chief.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, again, this is for a standardization of our SCBA, which is our self-contained breathing apparatus. This is the backpack harness you see that we wear when we're entering an environment that's dangerous to life and health, whether that be smoke or some other toxins. And this is for standardization so that we can purchase these through MSA. Again, this is for the safety of our members. There's been quite a few improvements over the years of this equipment. And MSA, after extensive testing by our members, has been found to be the most well-optioned equipment for us. And we're looking to have you approve this.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Brooks. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And we're about to give you a birthday gift, I think. Okay, any comments from my fellow council members?
I would like to move the item.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes, be safe out there. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Next item.
Next item would be 8B, Glendale Water and Power regarding Phase 3 of the mandatory water conservation with the applicable Drought Charge and Glendale Water and Power water conservation programs. 1, resolution implementing Phase 3 of the mandatory water conservation with applicable Drought Charge. 2, motion to note and file report on Glendale Water and Power water conservation program.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yeah, Mayor, Divine Members, City Council. Back in November of last year, City Council asked staff to bring a report on recommendation on increasing water conservation. We had actually, the City Council had implemented Phase 2 of mandatory water conservation in August of 2021. And this is a report on Phase 3, as was read into the record. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike DeGhetto, our Chief Assistant General Manager of Water and Power, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Mayor Devine, members of the council, I have a presentation I'm going to share where I kind of go through the steps in the background of how we got to this place. And basically, I always like to start with what our sources of water are, which really affects why we want to move to this other phase of mandatory conservation. So our water supplied from the San Fernando Basin through the Glendale Operable Unit, which is a Superfund cleanup site. It's about 30%. Verdugo Basin, again, groundwater basin, it's about 4% of our water supply. And then LA Glendale Water Reclamation Plant, where we use recycled water, mainly for outdoor irrigations and dual plumb buildings. That makes up about 7% of our supply. And I always show our demand is 100%, right? Because we want to meet 100% of demand from customers so that our remaining amount we purchase from Metropolitan Water District, which is about 60%. So the water that Metropolitan gets is part of a regional supply, which includes surface water from the Bay Delta and water from the Colorado River Basin through the Colorado River Aqueduct. And the water in the Bay Delta comes through the State Water Project. So the allocation from the State Water Project is currently set at 0 from the state. Now, regional investments that customers in Glendale have helped make through Metropolitan has kind of helped adapt to some of the climate change, leading to having about 2.6 million acre feet of water in storage. But the issue coming down the road is even Lake Mead itself is in a shortage situation. And there's a 66% chance that MWD will have to contribute some of the water that they have stored in Lake Mead to help maintain Lake Mead's levels beginning in 2024. Now, right now, precipitation in the Sierra is tracking above normal through today. But since we had those storms last month, it's really flatlined. So it's not building up storage for later. So the state's still keeping the allocation at 0. There's also a concern that the storms that occurred earlier weren't preceded by rain. And typically they would be preceded by rain, which helps saturate the soil. So there's a concern that the snow is resting on dry ground. So even when it starts melting in the spring, it may first saturate the soil and have less runoff get to Lake Oroville for use in the State Water Project. Now, I always talk about this, but we're always in phase 1, and there's just a lot of prohibitions in that. That's one of the pictures I like is sidewalks don't get thirsty. So there's really no reason to waste water and have it run off from your yard onto the sidewalks. And then the other thing that's really important is when it's raining, you got to remember to go in and turn off your sprinklers. And even for a while, right? Because if the soil's still wet and the plants are still getting water, there's no reason to turn your sprinklers back on. And then just, all these other prohibitions that are just really common sense. So we're recommending going to phase 3. And the big difference from phase 2 is instead of 3 days a week, it'll be 2 days a week, which would be Tuesdays and Saturdays for no more than 10 minutes at each station. And one thing I did want to point out was, and we're recommending to have this go in effect on February 1st, and that'll give us a little bit more time for outreach to customers. I think, last time we did this, it was kind of an emergency, and it went into effect the next day. And we kind of got some feedback from customers that they'd like a little more warning before we do this. And so, what does that mean? I just got some pictures of some irrigation controllers, and it's, okay, 7 a.m., it's not in the middle of the day. We're going to be watering with time for the water to soak in. It's like, okay, Tuesday is on in the program. So that program will run through it, and it's like 10 minutes per station. And just really, when we talk about stations, that's these valves, these little valves on the right. So each one of those is a station that maybe runs 4 to 6 individual sprinklers. And I wanted to add too that it's a good time to do this now, because really it'll get us ready for the summer. It'll let folks get their irrigation controllers program before it gets warmer. So since August through November, and I don't have December's data yet, we've cut back about 6.3% cumulatively, and the governor was asking for a 20% cutback. Now, the main time that cutback is going to come is during the summer, like those months, June, July, August, September even, when it's really warm. And, it won't come in February, right? February is usually when we have the least amount of use because it's wetter. And then just one thing on my graph that I'm tracking here, it is pretty notable, this black line for 2020, it's kind of abnormally low in April, but that's when the lockdowns first happened and the restaurants and things like that were closed. And then of course, August and July are the highest months typically. And like I spoke about before when I was, I think, speaking about the water shortage contingency plan, 77% of all of our use is residential, 39% multifamily, 38% single family. But in the summertime, multifamily use increases by about 12%, but single family use increases by 70%. So that's this orange line. And that's, again, why the tool that we use to increase conservation is to limit the watering days. And a lot of times I'll get asked about, oh gosh, there was new development or new apartment buildings. But overall, we've added 3,300 dwelling units. But in that same time period, we've had an 18% overall reduction in water use, primarily due to folks changing their yards and maybe paying more attention and turning off the sprinklers when it's raining and things like that. And I thought it was important too to talk about our recycled water. We use that water as a drought resistant source because it's not affected by a drought. And so we don't have drought restrictions on recycled water use. And that makes up about 7% of our overall demand. And that's water that we don't have to buy from Metropolitan and import, right? Because we're getting it from the LA Glendale water reclamation plant. And then, I always talk about the drought charge. Council, when council approved the last rates, it included like another analysis of our drought charge. And what this does, it covers all these fixed expenses that we have, fixing mains, taking water samples and things like that. And when we talk about fixed expenses, those are expenses we have regardless of how much water is getting used. And just to talk about the conservation programs, we have a lot of things on our webpage that really give you good examples of what when we talk about California native plants or a yard that is planted more for the climate that we live in. And it gives a lot of really good ideas and how things look, so you get a picture of that. And again, we've got the $500 rebate for the non-permit gray water system. We've got our smart home upgrades. And if you sign up, you can get emails that talk about, alerts for potential leaks you might have. We've got rebates for clothes washer, dishwasher, and the high efficiency toilets. And just all those things are on our webpage that folks can do anytime. And again, just even, tips on how to plant a climate friendly garden if it's something, you're going to do yourself. So that's my last slide. So any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeVito. Any comments, questions from council?
I have a question.
Okay, Councilmember Najarian.
Dr. DeGhetto, can you go back to your slide 9?
Yeah.
And you talked about the additional housing units that we had put in that resulted. Did you say despite the additional housing units or because of the additional multifamily units, our use went down?
No, despite the additional housing units, our use went down.
Okay.
Because in 2015, I got asked that question quite a bit because there was a lot of big apartment buildings going up, and really because everyone's been more efficient and more conscious of using water, we've actually had a sustained drop in water use of about 18% from what we had in 2013.
Okay. I mean, this is something that, the residents bring up all the time in times of drought. Why do we continue to add housing units that create a further demand on the water supply? But it's because of cutbacks and conservation throughout the city that our total usage is down.
And it's also because so much of the usage is for the outdoor watering, right? The newer dwelling units, the newer apartments, and those have already come with more efficient appliances, more efficient toilets, and they have a lot less landscaping.
Can you come back one day and show us those usages between, let's say, a 2-bedroom unit in a multifamily complex versus a 2-bedroom single-family home? I mean, when you get the next chance, I know it's something that we're all very interested in. We all hear the issues from the public, and we do know that much of the use is landscaping usage, which you don't have so much with the multifamily. But it'd be good to see some concrete numbers that we can really put our arms around and discuss as a
Councilmember Najarian, yeah, I can definitely do that. And if somehow I don't at a certain meeting, it for sure will be the next time we redo our rates, because that's part of the thing that goes into the rate study.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, I have.
Go ahead, John Agajanian, council member.
I don't know if this is the right place. I have some, worries. The people, they were removing their front yard grass for years, and they were changing to artificial turf, and they would get tickets. And they were saying they had to use drought tolerant vegetation. So I think if we can, I don't know, this is the right place for future, maybe bring back and review the artificial turf For those who like to use artificial turf in front of their house, to allow them to do it, while we are consistently saying we have to save water because of drought. So why we don't review this? So those who like to have drought tolerant vegetation in front of their house, to have the opportunity to do that, and those who want to use artificial turf because they like that green area, flat area, because they have kids. The kids are playing in front of their house. So let them have artificial turf if they feel that's more proper for their lifestyle and the beauty of their front yard, to let them to have whether drought tolerant vegetation or artificial turf.
Councilmember Agajanian, I might let Mr. Galanian answer that.
I missed the question. I apologize, Madam Mayor, Member City Council. As you know, we do have a front setback landscaping ordinance in place that specifies a certain percentage of artificial turf, including live plant material. I gather that Councilmember Agajanian is looking for a report back on that item with possible adjustments to the ordinance. And if that's the case, we're going to need a second for staff to bring back that report.
Councilmember Agajanian, is that what you're requesting?
Yes, because I want to give our residents the option of whether to have drought tolerant vegetation or artificial turf, because we have the water short, they have to save the water. So some, they just don't want any those.
But we have an ordinance, don't we, City Manager?
Yes, Mayor. Yes.
Review that. That's why my point is
Maybe a memo first.
bring this issue back and review it.
Maybe a memo
We have
will
an
allow
ordinance.
first. And they can,
So look at this ordinance at a future time.
I see, to review it and not necessarily change it. Correct?
So,
Yes.
to review, and if that's a better option, or we will save more water, so to change the ordinance.
Madam Mayor, Member City
Sir.
Council, if it's your desire, we can always provide a memo to council that details the details of the information, provide the information as to the front yard.
If I can just jump in, Madam Mayor.
Let Mr. Galanian finish, please.
Sure.
So as I indicated, we do have a front setback landscape ordinance in place. Would be happy to provide a memo to council, and that includes the details within that landscape if you don't recall all the elements. And then after that, if it's still council's desire, we can bring a report back for council's consideration to make adjustments to that ordinance.
And is this all on our website?
I believe so.
All right, Councilmember Kasakian, go ahead.
If Councilmember Agajanian is looking for a second so he can have his issue heard and deliberated on, I'll be happy to second it so we can have a discussion. I personally am not, certainly, I am not one that believes that artificial turf is the solution. And at the end of the day, the production, the creation, the disposal of this plastic artificial material has its own set of environmental issues and harmful impacts that, has been very clearly and well documented. It's really fancy carpeting. But I do have a concern with individuals, and I've raised this issue before. Unfortunately, it did not go anywhere. Maybe when we have this discussion again, we can make it part of it. Individuals who have placed artificial turf on the entirety of their lawns who are being required to tear it out and replace it. I think that at the very least, while we have this issue of a drought, we give, stay of execution. We allow for a certain period for this material to remain, because as you know, despite some of the other harm, even though a mistake was made, it'll use far less water. And I know that we also are doing a study. We're waiting for that study to come back to us, I think in the next few months, about what our own fields, our own athletic fields will be, whether they'll be entirely artificial, whether they'll be entirely natural, or some other option. But for the water report itself, what you've brought, Mr. DeGhetto and staff, I want to address a couple of issues, and I brought this up during our briefing, is I'd like to see us, it's going to be hard for us to get from where we are to the required 20%. And I think that part of it is, even in the presentation, I know this wasn't your intent, it's just what sometimes people hear what they want to hear. We talk about what the levels of rainfall, precipitation, and snowpack have been in the last few months, and I think you explained it well, but I think when people hear something they like, they focus on the part that they like, and many Californians, when they hear that the precipitation exceeded the averages for that month, they hear that and they stop listening to the rest, which is that being preceded by a wetter season, which helps retain a lot of the moisture and allows water to percolate down into underground water tables, as well as the issue of what comes afterwards. And we certainly we haven't had as wet of a January as we would like, and time is running short. In addition to that, we actually need, successive seasons of excess rainfall in order for us to be where we need to be, regardless of, how many new housing units are built, what the population is. Just generally, the use of water has not been managed very efficiently, and I think we've gotten a bit, as a society, we've gotten a little bit lazier. So I would like us to see, I would like to see, as part of this discussion, us to enforce the wasted water. When you see sprinklers that are going off and the water's just going into the gutters, pouring out into the street, is not watering any type of vegetation, drought tolerant or otherwise. I know that we used to have that before. I think it was under neighborhood services that would make sure that people were compliant, but I'd like to see a return to that, because I do see, even sometimes in our own medians along Glen Oaks, the sprinklers going off and water just gushing down, the gutters without really providing much of any purpose. 2 days of watering is, I think, fine. I think we need to bring back that previous culture of yellow is the new green, allowing some of these front lawns to be torn out, whatever we can do to maximize that, and as well as educating our public as to how to more effectively and efficiently use water. We have to all do it. The city has to lead the way. I know that. I don't know if, and I'll close on this. In terms of leading by example, do we have any city water features that we're currently still running? I know that's always been controversial. We turn them off, then we turn them back on. Are our fountains all off now currently, or at least our main fountain?
Madam Mayor, Mayor, City Council, yes, we do.
It is running? Anyways, whatever the case may be, wherever we have fountains such as that, or water features where we could be saving water or using it more efficiently, we should do so.
Yeah,
so
Madam
those are my
Mayor,
thoughts. I want to thank you for this, and I appreciate you giving me the time to share my thoughts. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Member City Council, Councilmember Kasakian, just wanted to clarify that we do have water features, but currently none of them are operating. They're not using water at all. They're just dormant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, I have a question and a couple comments. So the question is, this drought charge, the 60 cents per 1,000 gallons. Are we able to have variable charges for different tiers? Where we have where we have our 3 tiers, and as you move into a successive tier, because you're using more water, you pay a higher rate. Why is it that we have to apply the 60 cents per 1,000 gallons across rather than maybe having it slightly lower for that first tier and then successively higher?
Councilmember Brotman, when we did the cost of service analysis, every tier includes a portion of the fixed expenses. And the first tier, the base tier, then I guess gets built upon in the other two tiers. So when we have mandatory cutbacks, we need to collect revenue to cover the fixed expenses in all of the tiers equally. And that's how the rate is set up. And in addition to that, that complies with Proposition 218. So the city had a lawsuit related to some of our tiers and the way the water was priced. So to be in full compliance, this charge gets added to every tier. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so, but bottom line is this is not something that we can reconsider? Is this something that we could look at when we do the next COSA? Or is this?
If I could address that, Madam Mayor, members of council. Yeah, to
Yes,
Mr. DeGhetto's point, council member. So the amount of the current drought charge was established by the COSA that we adopted previously. To your question, that's something we could look at for the next COSA. However, as noted by Mr. DeGhetto, when you're calculating that charge, it really is to recoup the amount of fixed costs caused by lowering the amount of water that's being used. But again, it's something we can look at, but there's going to probably be some procedural and substantive issue with Prop 218 in trying to have different drought charges for different tiers. But we'll look at it, and when we sit down with the COSA consultant, we'll work through it. We'll look at that if we can.
Okay, thank you. And then, I mean, I think this is, stating the obvious, but over the longer term, we all know that we need to find ways to reduce our reliance on imported water, right? And you've in the past talked about some of the challenges we have with, trying to do things to allow more infiltration of water into the Verdugo Basin. I guess that's the one that's low. That's the one that we would like we would like to see more groundwater recharging that basin, right? So that we could draw more. So I know that's one area, and I know you have it on your radar, but I'd be interested in if we could maybe when some of these other issues come back, look at what, if anything, we can do. What are our options to try to help recharge that aquifer there. And the other area is I know, and we spoke this morning, and you reminded me of the numbers, but I think you said 75% of the recycled water that we have rights to, we end up having to dump in the LA River because we don't have the ability to distribute that water to additional maybe landscaped areas or buildings. And I understand that's very challenging with the cost of putting in new pipes and dual plumbing buildings and all that stuff. But I'd be interested again in that, and what scope is there for us to kick up that number? What is it? 7%, I think you said, of the water we use comes from recycled. How do we find ways to increase that? And finally, the third thing is obviously on conservation, and I know you've made the point many times, and it's something I think a lot of people don't understand, as Councilmember Najarian said, that it's really landscapes that are the main problem for us, but still indoor water use in apartment buildings and in homes. How can we make people more aware of the amount of water they're using, and and kind of give them, use a little bit of the behavioral economics approach to kind of letting people kind of track how they're using water and focus their mind a little bit more on the fact that they're using as much as they're using. And this is something Mr. Milano has brought up in the past, and I spoke to him, and he may even call in. But I know, he's had ideas that I thought were interesting about doing A/B testing and, trying to use certain messages and see how people respond to those. But anyway, if you could, maybe that's something we could look into, because I think we have to hit all these fronts, right? And this is going to be a long-term battle, but, how do we reduce our dependence on that, on MWD water, right?
Councilmember Brotman, if I could, there were maybe like 4 points that I might want to address in what you were talking about. The fastest way to reduce imported water is to conserve, right? When I show that chart where I have 100% as kind of a gray line, and then we make everything else up from MET. So any conservation that anyone does, that comes straight off of MET. So, that's definitely one way to reduce that percentage of metropolitan water that the city uses. And I did, about outreach and those kind of things. I have some statistics I didn't have in my report, but, we track kind of the rate that people open or read stories that we post or things that we email. And we had articles in from the source newsletters that go to, all of our 97,000 subscribers. And we've had like 33%, 41%, 40% open rate, which is a really good rate for opening an email from the utility. And I didn't know this is what they were called, but we've had envelope snipes, which are the little pictures on the envelope itself that says, hey, which phase of conservation are we in? And that goes to like 90,000 customers. We sent the phase 2 notification to 92,000 subscribers, and that was a 46% open rate. So, there are definitely folks that are kind of paying attention to the messaging that we're sending out, which I think is really good.
I guess I'm wondering sorry if I could interrupt, is how much do people really understand what they're using every day? I mean, I don't think I am really. I think how can you make that more visceral to people, what they're using every day, and maybe some kind of a target. This is what you should be using every day.
So we send out letters. I think it's every month to have I think a little happy face and a medium expression, and that's what the point of that is to help you understand how much water you're using every day. And if you sign up and log in, you can look at data from your water meter as well electronically, if you really want to do that. And if you're a person that has the SIVA frame, you get information about your water use on there. And Mr. Milano asked me about use in his area, and we got him hooked up with that, so he can look at hourly data on his rentals for usage in that. So the information's there and the tools are there. And I would encourage everyone that's, really concerned about that sort of thing to look at it and use it. And then just the other thing, and of course this is, I do this for a living and I'm an engineer, but I always talk about landscaping. When you take a shower, there's one nozzle, but when you're irrigating, there's 6 nozzles, and they're running for 10 minutes or more, right? And everybody's shower maybe is less than 10 minutes. That's just one nozzle. So you have to think of it in proportions like that as well.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Galanian.
we also have a couple of callers on the line.
Okay, all right. Before I make my comments, let's hear from the callers.
Edwin, you have 3 minutes, but I don't have your last name, Edwin. Go ahead.
How many minutes? I just want to use first name is good enough for me. I don't want to disclose my last name.
Go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, council members. Speaking about water, we talk about water recycling. I would like to see if this city is looking into building a water system that the city of Los Angeles is currently working on. It's called a toilet to tap water system, where sewage water is cleaned and purified that meets and exceeds purification standards. The reason I bring this up is because this Mayor Eric Garcetti of the City of Los Angeles noticed that that a lot of the sewage water that they're purifying, it gets discharged back out to the sea. Now, the good thing is Eric Garcetti is working on changing all that so that water can get piped back into the water system, because the City of Los Angeles and LA County is growing. The other thing that I would like to ask, does the City of Glendale have, or are you guys considering working on building a water reservoir system where the city can collect storm drain water that is from the rain and collect all that water and store that into the reservoir? Because that's another thing that the City of Los Angeles has been talking about. I would like to see the City of Glendale looking into that as well. And another thing that I was thinking is that I think all the restaurants and businesses should use one of those automatic water systems where it's a motion detected system where water will dispense when it detects your hand. That's my idea of saving water. Instead of those manual faucets where you just have to turn it on and then turn it off. And we can have the automatic dispensers, which is motion detected. That's the way to go to save water. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on the toilet to tap, Mr. Galanian, or the reservoir system? I'd be interested in knowing how much that would cost.
Mayor Devine, if I could,
Sure.
I'll start with first related to capturing the stormwater.
Okay.
Because of the adjudication in our basin, all surface water belongs to the City of Los Angeles, so we actually can't capture it. City of LA would sue us if we did that. Now, as far as meeting and I know Mr. Amrani's working on this, the enhanced watershed management plan and doing infiltration instead of having it going down the storm drain, that'll help, but we can't capture that water and keep it in the reservoir. The thing about, I'm not going to use those words, but what it's called is direct potable reuse. And the state is working on regulations that would allow the advanced treatment of the recycled water to bring it up to drinking water standards. But that might be about 5 years out. And it is something that I would want to bring back to council, and probably what I would come back with, the first thing would be a consultant to help us with that. But that might be in maybe 2 or 3 years. And it would require a lot of public outreach to make sure it had acceptance from residents and customers.
But how's Eric Garcetti doing this now?
LA tends to have a lot of really big announcements that aren't necessarily tied to the regulatory environment. And they have, we're talking about those fixed charges. They have, I think, 1 million water customers that are paying fixed charges. So it gives them a lot of funding to do big studies and things like that as well. So.
Okay, more money. Okay, thank you. Next caller.
Herbert Milano. Mr. Milano, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mayor Devine, members of the City Council, I want to add maybe a few ideas to this topic. I'm not new to this concept of initiating some concepts that may be different from what the city is considering. And I don't mean any criticism by this or for anyone. I'm just simply going to offer something that I tried in the past with the city of Glendale. I made suggestions, and here is what has worked for me. I'm going to refer to my apartment building. I have 8 units and 16 tenants. It's basically two residents per unit. And I will give you, first of all, a history of last year's, or the last 3 bills. My calculation shows from the data that I got from Glendale Water and Power that we were using 70 gallons per person per day on my next to the last bill, or the one prior to that. Then on the next to the last bill, we got 51 gallons per person per day. And on my last bill, it came down to 39 gallons per person per day. That includes the irrigation as well. The initiative that I took was basically a soft one in informing the tenants of what my goals were. And I did install the sensor type faucet in several of the units, which I figured it will serve as a reminder to them that we were in a water drought situation. And I interviewed them, some of them today, and they told me that it had an influence and that they were more cognizant when they stopped taking long showers because the faucet sort of like reminded them of that. It was a test to see if it would work. In addition to letting them know what our status was, the effect, I think, was a 24% drop in usage. And of course, I have the Glendale Water and Power. Thanks for giving me access to that information promptly. My suggestion is that the initiatives have more of an active rather than a passive approach. And what I suggested during our last drought is that the format of the utility bill be changed such that we can engage students and that they can in turn read this document in a much easier way, and that they can then engage their families in reaching the goals that that the city would suggest. I think it is possible to have 50 gallons per person per day for residents living in apartments. And what I have found out is that most tenants, when I tell them that they are using more than 50 gallons per person per day, when I told them that last year, they were shocked. And I think that surprise allowed them to start thinking a little bit more closely about it. So an approach where there's information that is continually being given, engaging students and making it more of a participatory one, and giving information in a way that is clear with clear objectives might be useful. So it's worked for me. It might work for the rest of the 2/3 of the population that live in multifamily housing. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Milano, you're a very conscientious landlord. Good for you. Wonderful. Next caller.
Madam Mayor, I have no more callers for this item.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I thank Mr. Milano for the suggestions, and yeah, I think probably most people would be shocked, and it would be nice if we could get the landlords to talk to their tenants and see if they can make a personal outreach as well. That would be a good idea. I just want to hit on the drought charge. I just want to let people know, our customers know, that if you conserve and you reduce the water use in your household, your water bill will not change, or it may even go down. This rate increase or fee does not mean that your rates are going to go up. If you conserve, if you watch how much water you are using, your bill can stay the same, or it can even be lower than you have now. So what we're hoping is that this will be an incentive for all of our customers to conserve, to use less water, and thereby help in this drought situation and make this phase 3 a success. I was at one of our constituents' home a few years back. She had that app where she knew how much water she used per day, per shower, and she lived by that. She ran practically her water use by that information. So it is out there. Anybody can plug into it. And so I would encourage everyone to be sure that, when did you say this goes into effect, Mr. DeGhetto?
Mayor Devine, February 1st.
February 1st. So everybody kind of get ready, get your mind set, let the outreach begin en masse and with vigor. And so our people know where we are. And I think everybody realizes that we are in a drought situation. How dire it is, maybe they don't, but let's inform them, and let's make sure that they have all the information they need to conserve water, all of our conservation program information, and our outreach programs continue. So with that, let's see, do I need a motion to note and file?
I would like to move item 8.
Madam Mayor.
1 and 2.
Madam Mayor, I do believe
Yes.
Councilmember Kasakian raised his hand for comment.
Yeah, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I will second the motion to adopt the resolution as well as to note and file the report. But I also just wanted to ask staff, maybe one of my colleagues will second this, to come back to us with a incentive program for those landlords who, like Mr. Milano and others, are working to improve the efficiency of the water usage of their units. A lot of buildings are very old and may not have the most up-to-date toilets, shower heads, faucets, whatever it may be. And if there's a way, I know in the past we've given out low flow water faucet heads as well as other items and goods from our GWP division to interested parties. I'd like to ask for us to do that type of a program and to do the outreach to see if there hasn't been a change in a certain building, to contact the individuals and offer any help or assistance or a consult as to how they can.
I'll second that.
Second that.
I'll second that.
Second that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item would be item number C, City Attorney regarding approval of First Amendment to City Manager's Employment Agreement with Rubik Galanian to provide a 5% salary adjustment. Motion approving First Amendment to City Manager's Employment Agreement.
Madam Mayor, members of council,
Yes,
the item before you, as read by Mr. Jemin, is consideration of an adjustment to the city manager's salary via an amendment to his employment contract. The council retained Mr. Galanian's service as city manager and approved an employment agreement in March of last year. And in it agreed that it would consider an adjustment in the range of 2% to 5% within the first year. Council had that consideration last month and provided its direction to bring this report, which would approve a First Amendment to Mr. Galanian's employment agreement and would provide for a 5% salary adjustment, adjusting his salary to $24,325 per month. So with that, present this matter for you and happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Arjanian.
When this will be applicable? When will it start? The first salary adjustment will be happen. When will it be happened?
Councilmember Agajanian, as we noted in the report, we are recommending that it would be retroactive to January 16th, so just this past Sunday, which is the first day of the current pay period.
But that will be less than a year. Just
correct. As I noted, the discussion was the council would consider an adjustment within the first year, and you gave us direction to bring this item, and this is being presented to you.
I see.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Seconded by
Me.
Okay.
Councilmember Agajanian. Thank you, me. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. Next item.
Next item would be 8D, City Clerk regarding Records Management Program and Records Retention Schedule. One, resolution adopting a records retention schedule and policy for authorizing destruction of certain city records.
Okay, Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, this is a long-awaited item that staff have been working on, putting the records retention schedule together. I'll turn it over to City Clerk, Aram Ajemian, for a brief presentation.
Citywide record schedule. Records retention schedule. How long a record series is retained? Who is responsible for retaining the original record? Other guidelines to improve efficiency. Records retention policy ensures records are protected, eliminates duplications, improves efficiency, frees space, ensures legal compliance. The process, we hired a consultant, Gladwell Government Services Incorporated, expert in city records retention, developed drafts based on best practices of over 200 cities and legal requirements. We met with city departments, city attorney and the city clerk did. We made revisions while ensuring legal sufficiencies. City attorney reviewed, and we're presenting this to city council for adoption. After this, we'll have some employee training will follow. Are there any questions?
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt the
Excuse
record.
me, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Agajanian.
I'm not sure, but I was reading that this item is not going to come to the council anymore. Am I right? Because previously, every year would come in front of us and we would order, okay, destroy certain time, I mean, few years of the documents which were not that important, but the way I was reading that, I couldn't find it. Where did I read that this is not going to come to us anymore? Is that right?
Councilmember Agajanian, that's a great question. What this policy ensures is that there are times when we do not have to bring a records destruction to you. There are certain kinds of records that we might or we will bring, and there are some that we will not bring. I think Lucy Varpetian is...
Councilmember Agajanian, if I may just jump in and help respond to this question. There is a comprehensive schedule that was adopted, that's being presented to council now. You do have the entirety of the schedule. It essentially lays out what state and federal law require as the minimum, and in some cases, the recommended period of time that we should retain every city record. We have spent the better part of last quarter trying to review all of the city documents to make sure that we have a comprehensive list for you. We've worked with individual departments. We've worked with department directors and staff. And that schedule now provides a complete list of all of the city records that we have and the amount of time that they need to be stored. And if you adopt this policy, then in essence, if city staff follows that policy, then the records will not need to come back to council. But if there is going to be a shift from that, and if it's not going to be consistent with what is being recommended here, then in those instances, we will have to bring it back to council to get approval and authorization.
Okay.
How long did you say this took you to do?
Well, fortunately, we had brought on Diane Gladwell, who has assisted over 200 cities in California develop similar policies. And so it was a great effort on the part of the city clerk in assistance with Diane Gladwell, who used to be a city clerk in the city of Glendale a very long time ago. And so, yeah, it was an all hands on deck from every department.
It's a huge, huge report, undertaking. Any comments other than,
Okay.
okay.
Can I
Any other questions?
move? Did we move this item or not yet?
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Any
We did. Would we have a second?
I'll second it, but I might. I just wanted to thank staff because I think I asked for this not long after I joined council, and I came from an organization that had very defined, record retention policies, and I just think it makes everything clear. It's not so much the details of the policy, but just the fact that we have one that's important to me and we're consistent, and nobody can come around and say, oh, we destroyed this because we're trying to hide something. We have a very
Absolutely.
standard practice. So just want to thank you for putting this together. I know it was a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes. And next item?
Next item was 80, but it's been pulled off. It will come back on Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. Next item after that is 8F, City Attorney regarding receive and file certification of signatures on a petition received and verified for a partial referendum of ordinance number 5974, authorizing the execution of development agreement by and between the City of Glendale and Vista Investment, LLC, for development of a hotel and 120 West Colorado Street. Council consideration of repeal or ordinance number 5974, submission to the City of Glendale voters of partial repeal. One motion to receive and file certification of signatures on a petition and verified for a partial referendum of ordinance number 5974. Introduction of ordinance repealing the part of ordinance number 5974, authorizing the execution of a development agreement by and between the City of Glendale and Vista LLC. 3, motion directing staff to prepare resolutions necessary to place the partial referendum of ordinance number 5974 on the ballot at the June 7th, 2022 general municipal election.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mayor, City Council, I'm just going to turn it over to Mike Garcia, our City Attorney, for the presentation. There.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, the council adopted an ordinance in October authorizing the execution of a development agreement with the owners and developers or applicant of a hotel project at 120 West Colorado Street. Subsequent to that, a petition was circulated to partially repeal that development, that ordinance 5974, which would have the effect of repealing the approval of that development agreement. That petition received the requisite number of signatures, 10% of registered voters in Glendale, roughly 13,000 voters. As a result, this item is before you when a petition is submitted to repeal or referend an ordinance, and that petition contains the sufficient number of signatures. The council is required to either repeal that ordinance as proposed, or put it on the ballot at either the next general election or a special election. So the item is before you. We have had a conversation with the applicant for that project, and due to reasons related to the financeability of the project and just the length and cost of a referendum election, they are willing to accept a repeal of the ordinance, or a partial repeal, I should say. So our recommendation is for the council to adopt the motion at 8F1. And then to introduce the ordinance at 8F2, which would repeal ordinance number 5974, with one change. That ordinance does refer to an earlier ordinance, 5967. That should be 5968. But with that, we would ask the council to take those two actions tonight.
So I would move the item based on what the city attorney is offering.
Okay, we need a motion for number 1 to receive and file. This is it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll
Well,
call.
it's 8F1.
This is 8F1.
Correct.
Is that what you moved, Mr. Agajanian?
Yes, I believe he did.
That's the repeal. I will second that one.
Roll
And then
call.
there's 8F2, which is introducing the
Is
ordinance.
introducing, right.
Yeah.
But
Whenever
let's take roll call for,
8F2.
well, that's just an introduction. So we need a roll call for motion 8A1.
8F.
8F1.
8F1.
Okay, I move that too.
You already did.
Okay, roll call for 8F1.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes, and now I need the introduction of the ordinance.
8F2, I move the item.
You introduce it?
Introduce.
Okay,
With-
it has been introduced.
With that
Okay.
change, with just the.
Yes, but
The change. I'm sorry, with the change.
Thank you.
5968. Okay, thank you. Next item?
Next item would be 9, hearing. 9A, community development regarding extension of interim urgency ordinance regarding Senate Bill 9, housing development and lot split projects, and Senate Bill 478, floor area ratio standards. 1, introduction of interim urgency ordinance in the council of the city in Glendale, California, extending by 10 months and 15 days. Ordinance number 5981, establishing interim standards and ministerial process for reviewing and approving eligible SB 9 projects and setting minimum SB 478 floor area ratio standards for certain multifamily housing development projects.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Mr. Galanian or Mr. Garcia?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, I think we're just going to turn it over to Kristen Asp, our Principal Planner with
Okay.
Community Development Department.
Okay. Ms. Asp?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. This item before you is just an extension of the interim urgency ordinance that was adopted on December 14th of last month. It had a 45-day window for an urgency, and in order to extend that, this is before you again tonight to extend for another 10 months and 15 days to complete the full year. To allow staff to study some SB 9 projects as they come in and refine our current standards that are in the urgency ordinance.
Okay, excellent. Do we have any phone calls?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, we have several phone calls.
Oh, okay, let's hear them.
We have 7 phone calls.
Okay.
Charles Carnell, you have 3 minutes. Charles?
Charles?
Madam Mayor, I do believe it's for item 8F. As we have moved along, we have several callers for item 8F because the delay that we have in the system.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, it's Charlie, I guess, from United. So that item's already finished, and I think they got the verdict or the approval that they wanted. So I don't know that we need to hear
Well,
if they'd like to.
Madam Mayor, I apologize. You probably should
Yes.
hear from them, and if there's any change that you
Oh.
want to take on the action, then you could do reconsideration, but I would suggest you give them a minute
We
or
have
two
several calls.
to speak on the
Alrighty,
item.
let's,
But let's
Okay.
remind the speakers that what the action was that the council took
yes.
before they speak.
Charles Carnell, you have 3 minutes. It's regarding item 8F. Charles?
From Unite here?
Actually, can I suggest, since we're in the middle of 9A, can we hold those callers, finish 9A?
Absolutely.
And then bring it back to that item if council wants to reconsider?
Okay. Okay, let's do that. We're in a public hearing right now.
Do we have any callers for 9A?
Do we have calls for the public hearing?
We do not have any calls for the public hearing.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Any council members have discussion or comments?
The item 9A.
It's for introduction.
It's for introduction, so it has been introduced. Thank you, Councilmember Agajanian. Okay, we'll move back to phone calls for item 8F 1 and 2 and 3. So let's hear from the callers.
Elena Smith, you have 3 minutes. Elena, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Elena Smith, and I'm calling from Unite here, Local 11, and I want to thank the council for rejecting the development agreement. I canvassed on this project. I spoke to hundreds of voters who made it really clear. In Glendale, we want more housing. We don't want more hotels. So thank you for your decision, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. Next caller.
Bridget McConaughey?
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Bridget McConaughey. I'm with Unite Here Local 11, and I am very happy to hear that you have rejected the development agreement. Speaking to hundreds of residents, I heard often that they were worried about the changing nature of the city, all of the changes that have happened in their lifetime, especially in some of the areas that have stayed to their roots. And we're really happy to see that you have rejected the development. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Connor Smith, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Connor. Thank you so much for rejecting the development agreement. I canvassed on this campaign, and people that I've spoken to in the community were incredibly concerned about parking, about the housing crisis, about the fact that we have a housing crisis and not a hotel crisis. So people definitely felt like they needed more homes and not more hotels. And we are so pleased that you responded to that appropriately. So thank you very much for rescinding the development agreement, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Nancy Marquin.
Hello.
Hi, Nancy. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nancy Marquin, and I'm also from Unite Local 11. I just want to tell you thank you so much for the decision. The community of Glendale is really, I'm sure they're going to be so happy with this decision because they actually did want it more affordable homes and not hotels due to, traffic, rent going up, and parking situations. So I just want to thank you for your decision.
Thank you. Next caller.
Estefany Castañeda.
Hi, my name is Estefany Castañeda. I want to thank you for rejecting the development agreement. I canvassed on this campaign as well, and the community members I spoke to overwhelmingly rejected this project. Voters had many reasons to oppose the project. To give one example, I remember a lot of folks telling me about how many traffic accidents they saw already in Glendale increase, and they expressed concern about the potential impacts of more development on the safety of pedestrians and other drivers. So I, once again, I really appreciate you for rejecting the development.
Thank you. Next caller.
Charlie Carnell. Charlie, go ahead.
Hi, this is Charlie Carnell, Research Analyst with Unite Here. Just wanted to say thank you and to say, in many ways, the greatest enemy anyone who wants to make a change for the better faces is cynicism about politics. It deters people sometimes from signing petitions, and sometimes people say, I'm going to do this, but I know that the powers that be will have their way. And I just want to say that the action today, it's something that I hope that voters and anyone listening to this see that you can really make a difference. Your signatures, your communication with your elected officials really matter, and so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Madam Mayor, that was all the callers I had for that item.
Okay. Is there any reason to change our vote? I think not.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Agajanian and then Najarian, I'm sorry. Did you?
No, I don't believe we need to
Okay.
reconsider our earlier vote. Thank you for the callers, and it's unfortunate we took them out of order.
Okay. All righty. Thank you so much. What's the next item?
We have oral communication next. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay.
I do have two callers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, great. Let's hear.
Vahe Sarajian.
Mine is on the oral communication.
Vahe, you are on oral communications. Your 5-minute portion.
Yes.
Go ahead, Vahe.
Okay. Madam Mayor and City Council people, Glendale is the 4th largest city in Los Angeles County, yet the black population of Glendale is only 1.8%. How is that possible? It is because racism in this former sundown town is alive. It is thriving thanks to its city leadership. let me tell you how you, the council, has contributed to keeping Glendale white. I am the owner of a home located at Harrington Drive in Glendale. I made my home available to short-term rental. From the beginning, a large number of my guests were Black Americans. At the time I opened my house to guests, I did not know that the city of Glendale was a former sundown town where Black Americans were not welcome and were systematically excluded. One of the first racist incidents I witnessed was in 2017 when 4 neighbors approached me in front of my house and told me to stop renting my house to these kinds of people, that I had brought South Central to the neighborhood. One neighbor launched at me with his fist and elbow caught back as if he was going to punch me. Following this incident, 43 calls were made to the Glendale Police Department by certain people in my neighborhood. I made a public records request for emails sent to the police department from my neighbors. The emails were rampant with racism, using words to describe my Black guests as gangsters, stating, I quote, "I felt I was living in a gangster neighborhood," end quote. Frankly, if I had gone out earlier, I would be scared to come home, end quote. Another quote, "This is a very scary situation and not something I should have to put up with in the city of Glendale," end quote. You sided with the people who told me that I brought South Central to the neighborhood when you voted to ban short-term rentals. You sided with people who assaulted me for hosting Black guests. What's truly terrifying is that I'm not the only home that experienced racially motivated police calls. Last week, I spoke about a family who had faced the same situation at a Montecito house in the city of Glendale, where a family was surrounded by 4 police vehicles for 3 hours due to an email from a neighbor complaining about vulgar rap music. The neighbor sent this email to city manager Yasmin De Beers and asked to put the matter on the city council. Interestingly enough, there is an email from an officer on the scene who confirmed the people were doing nothing wrong. They may have been doing nothing wrong, but they were Black in the city of Glendale. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and council persons.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Herbert Milano, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Herbert.
Thank you very much. Mayor Devine, members of the City Council, I am calling in order to address the issue of the capital improvement project. I have been researching the City of Glendale's website, trying to find an executive level report that would give me information with regard to what is the total deferred maintenance by department, such as Public Works, Glendale Water and Power, Parks and Recreation, and so forth. I have been able to find some information that gives the extreme amount of detail from a 10-year plan that was written back in 2018, but I'm not able to find anything that is current that would give me an overall picture of what is the total deferred maintenance on infrastructure. I'm assuming that the city would be interested very much in having a comprehensive report such that when funds become available from the federal government on their major infrastructure bill comes through, that the City of Glendale will be ready and prepared to submit those requests for capital improvement. I have several reasons why I'd like to get access to this kind of information, but I believe that information is not necessarily good for me, but for the rest of the community to know what are the deferred infrastructure needs of the city and what is the total amount. I remember reading a report from the Glendale Water and Power years ago, and that report had about $300 million in deferred infrastructure needs that I believe the city has not been able to meet by a long shot. The particular problem that I have is that the roads in my neighborhood have been deteriorating for a very long time. And I have been after the Department of Public Works to have sufficient funds to be able to do a reconstruction of many of the roads that recently have been very, very badly damaged additionally by the rain. I think that waiting 30 years or more to get streets repaired, reconstructed, is not in line with the vision that we have for a city that is responsive to the needs of the residents. The look and the feel of our neighborhoods, especially south of the 134 freeway, need to be looked at, and we have to get a good gauge as to the deteriorating situation that we have. As many of you know, the funding situation, the precarious financial situation of the city is impacting it. But irrespective of that, I think that we ought to know at an executive report of what the infrastructure needs of the city really are and what the total amount that will be budgeted every year should be in order to improve the conditions of our roadways and the sidewalks. I would like to urge the City Council to look at this report once it is assembled and consider it a priority for the budget study session coming up in a few months. I personally have requested through the California Public Records Act such a report that it be assembled and submitted, but I believe that the City Council should take an initiative to provide the general public with a full comprehensive view of all the deferred infrastructure needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Mr. Galanian, I know that staff keeps up with the grants and the infrastructure bills and funding available, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
And have we ever had a report like Mr. Milano is requesting?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, if you recall, Mr. Amrani, our Director of Public Works, presented a report based on recently established and completed pavement management program, where he, Mr. Amrani, specifically stated our deferred maintenance needs in dollar-wise and miles that need to be, of streets that need to be repaved. They are also working, that department's also working on a comprehensive capital improvement program. And as part of the budget study session, you have in the past and you will be presented with details of where we stand as far as our pavement management initiatives and efforts are concerned. Your City Council last year set aside additional funding just because of the amount of deferred maintenance that we are facing as reported in that pavement management program. And that department is working around the clock to trying to pave and rehabilitate as many streets and sidewalks as possible within the funding availability.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kalanian. Okay, any more calls? That's it?
Madam Mayor, I do have 4 more callers.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Robert Bunyatian, 5 minutes. Robert.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council members. One of the greatest issues living in Glendale is housing. A single-family home is priced at above $1 million. Townhomes are regularly priced between $650,000 to $1 million. The median family income for a family of Glendale is $65,000 to $70,000. This means that the average family is priced out of home ownership. In addition, income to rent ratio, according to the Southern California Association of Government reports of 2019, Glendale renters paid 40% of their income to rent, and that has just gotten worse. Why is this the case? The answer is easy. While the federal government through the Federal Reserve worked to reduce the mortgage interest rates to historic lows, Glendale, that is the five of you, restricted supply of dwelling units. That is, the federal government artificially induces demand while you five artificially stifle the supply. I hope the economists on the panel know what happens when demand increases and supply stays the same. How do the five restrict supply? By zoning laws, height restriction laws, environmental laws, expensive permit taxes, historical zoning, subsidizing housing, including Section 8 housing, variance housing, senior housing, inclusionary law. One might ask, why is there even a need for subsidized housing? Why is housing so expensive that the elderly and the variants can't afford it and have to get government assistance? The answer is that the five of you make it so by restricting supply while the federal government increases demand and increases housing prices. In a vicious circle, you five create the problem and then create subsidized housing that attacks the symptom but not the problem, not realizing that by attacking the symptom, you actually make housing much less affordable. You would think economists on the council would know better. A classic case of restricting supply is by historical zoning. Mr. Brotman's answer to this is that, well, they can just build ADUs. Maybe Mr. Brotman is willing to build a 500 square foot ADU and rent it to a family of four and charge them $2,500 for rent. You five talk a lot about inequality and equity, yet you five are the promoters and the perpetrators of government-enforced artificial inequality in Glendale, created by housing policies. Why is this the case? Why do the five of you promote and perpetrate it? There are many reasons for this, but one of them is political power. In 2000-2001, adopted general fund property taxes were an amount of $13.3 million of the general fund, $98 million. Property taxes were 13.6% of the general fund. In the 20 years since, the 2021-2022 adopted budget had property taxes of $73 million out of an adopted budget of $255 million, or property taxes accounted for approximately 29% of the general fund. What conclusion can we make of this? What do we get with all the taxes? I can't walk 2 minutes from where I live and not see a transient defecating in the bushes right under a family's apartment window. Yes, that really happened 2 weeks ago. Next time I should rent an Uber and send a transit to one of the historical districts to see what the response would be. The ratio of property tax to general fund has increased twofold, from 13.6% to 28.6% of the general fund, a compounded annual growth rate of 8.8%. To compare, the average return for the S&P 500 from the end of 2001 to end of 2020 with dividends was about 9.06%. This is not a perfect comparison, but it looks like a healthy return for the politicians and property taxes. Everyone talks about greedy corporate executives, but no one talks about the greedy politicians. So the five of you have an incentive to get as much taxes as possible to increase your influence over the daily life of residents in Glendale. You don't become a council member and go, hey, I wish I had less dollars and less influence over people. You always want more, more, and more to feed your ego of having residents be dependent on you. Thank you.
Next caller.
Edwin, I don't have a last name. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, City Council members. It's me, Edwin, again. I myself am a supporter of affordable housing. And one thing I would like to talk about is short-term rental properties that I've been noticing popping up on websites like Airbnb, Flitkey, and Vrbo. I would like to ask the city council to consider regulating these short-term rental sites and the property owners by requiring the property owners to rent property based on the current rental market rate. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say an apartment, a one-bedroom house or apartment costs $1,600 per month to rent. Divide that up by 30 days. That comes to $53.33. So my idea is to tell these Airbnb hosts that they can rent based on what the current market rate is, divided by 30 days. Because what I've been noticing a lot with these short-term rental sites is that these hosts are charging 3 to 5 times more than what the daily market rate to rent an apartment or house would go for. And the other thing that I would like to mention is that I know that I brought this up for about DA George Gascon about his soft on crime sentencing enhancement. But even though we don't like him, I do have an idea that we can at least try to work with them to come up with something that would be very helpful to the city. So, such as, so if, for example, if a defendant commits a nonviolent crime in the city of Glendale, my idea is that you guys should talk to the DA, George Gascon, to consider sentencing that criminal to community service. And by doing that, my idea is you should tell George Gascon if that defendant committed a crime in the city of Glendale, that defendant should serve community service in the city of Glendale. And I could see that as very beneficial because we see a lot of labor shortages. We could require these defendants to serve community service in the crime in the city that they committed the crime, because I see there's a shortage of labor going around, and somebody can clean the lawn, sidewalks, and the street, and pick up trash as part of their sentencing hours of community service. That's my idea, is tell George Gascon to sentence criminals to community service if they're not going to get jail time. Thank you.
Well, I think our chief is in the audience and he's heard your suggestions. What is our ordinance, Mr. Galanian, on ADUs or, I'm sorry, short-term rentals?
Madam
Airbnb?
Mayor, yeah, Madam Mayor,
Refresh memory.
Madam Mayor,
Excuse
Member
me?
City Council, our current existing ordinance in place only allows short-term rentals when a property owner is occupying the property. So it's anything other than that is not allowed in Glendale.
Right, and is it in our purview to tell them what to rent them for?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
Malcolm Johnson, you have 5 minutes. Malcolm, go ahead.
Hi. The gentleman's been calling, called first, been calling about African Americans in Glendale for the last couple of weeks now. I am an African American. I do live here. I've been living here for about 19 years. I feel very safe here. And I still have no idea what this man is asking the council for. I would appreciate it if he's going to speak up for me or speak up for fellow African Americans, that he make a request of some kind, because I'm not sure what it is to this day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Malcolm. So happy to have you here in our city. Next caller, please.
Sina, I don't have a last name, Sina. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. This is Sina Arhamsad. I'm with West Coast COVID Testing, and we just wanted to make an announcement. So we have a site set up in parking lot 34. That's at 1726 Kenyatta Boulevard. It's right across from Verdugo Park and the skate park. We have a drive-up COVID clinic. We set up every single weekday except for Thursdays. We're offering both rapid and PCR testing, and you don't get out of your car for our process here. We keep everyone in the car and we come around door to door. The PCR tests, we're offering them at no cost to anybody. And we're actually, as of today, we're offering rapid tests to no cost for all GUSD students. So bring your student ID, or if you're, I think only middle and high school students have student ID. So the younger students, if you just have a ID number. And the rapid results we're sending via text message within 1 to 4 hours. And the PCR results are sent via email within 1 to 2 days. Most of our patients have been waiting in the car line maybe less than 5 minutes, and results have been getting out within a day, less than 24 hours actually right now, but obviously that's subject to change, if things get super busy. You can register online at westcoastcovid.com/City of Glendale. And we also accommodate like a walk-ups, or I guess it would be drive-ups in this circumstance. And if you just check the City of Glendale Instagram page or Twitter page or Facebook page, you can find more information about us. Or if you just follow our Instagram page at West Coast COVID, we're constantly kind of releasing more information or added hours, or if we're changing test types and things like that. So we're honored to serve this community, and it's been a blast getting to know people and just having fun with people out there. So be well, stay safe, and let us know if you need anything. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what are your hours? I'm sorry, I missed that because I'm taking notes.
Sure. If you go to westcoastcovid.com/City of Glendale, we actually have our hours posted. Currently, we are there every weekday except for Thursday between the hours of either 12 to 6 or 2 to 6. But what we will do is update our hours consistently week to week. We're just trying to expand more and more, or kind of listen to what the needs of the community are. If we fill up quickly, we open slots. We want to keep wait times down. So right now, the hours are in the afternoons and evenings. But next week, we hope to expand and offer at least 1 to 2 morning appointments as well.
Thank you very much. We're happy to have you here as well.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next caller.
Madam Mayor, that was the last caller.
Last caller. Thank you. Thank you to all the callers tonight. What's next, please?
Adjournment.
Madam Mayor, sorry, we have a new business.
Isn't there new business?
There is new business. Madam Mayor, I would ask for a motion that the city attorney be and hereby is authorized to enter into it and execute a professional services agreement with the law firm of Best and Krieger LLP to represent the city of Glendale in the matter of Glenoaks Canyon Homeowners Association versus the city of Glendale, case number 22 STC P00114. The agreement shall, in addition to other provisions, contain a budget and fee cap for the handling of said matter.
Move to approve this.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian.
Yes.
Brotman.
Abstain.
Kasakian.
Abstain.
Najarian.
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. And what's next, please?
Move to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Second. We are adjourned at 8:04. Thank you all. Good night.
Yeah.
Night.